he scared? Yeah. He's scared because you're scared.
Fear can be seen, felt, and passed from one person to another. This is one of the quietest episodes I've ever seen in my entire life. I didn't hear more than 15 sentences in the last 15 minutes. I guess people who played the video game knew this was coming, but we had no idea that Henry and Sam were going to take so much screen time, in this particular episode. As we know, Henry is the most wanted man in Kansas City, and we know that from episode 4. Episode 5 of The Last of Us gave us a new point of view and dimension. We learned about so many cities and the men who ran them, and this time some bloaters were added. I think there are a few changes, there are a few things that we've changed completely in The Last of Us TV show when you compare it to the game adaptation. So while you stay with me to the end of this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and drop your thoughts on The Last of Us episode 5. I'll be giving you a breakdown, some of the changes that happened, a full review and recap of The Last of Us season 1 episode 5. In a TV show, The Last of Us episode 5 is called Endure and Survive, and it takes place in real time. So after the whole thing, the chaos and rioting break out in Kansas City, they hang the police officers by their necks to let the military know that they need more men. It was clear that Henry and Sam are among the survivors who wanted to stay quiet and just to stay alive. When Pedro was finally stopped, Kathleen gathered the people of the town and put them down. We saw Kathleen in episode 4 of The Last of Us already, and we knew what she was up to. She goes on to tell them that she's not Pedro, but she's going to be in charge, in any way. And she's been looking for Henry for so long, and this is where she tries to let people rat about Henry to find the exact location of Henry to, take revenge of what actually happened. Kathleen talks down on Perry after even suggested a different strategy about their men, regrouping. All Kathleen wanted to do was to let their men go out there and find wherever Henry was. But Perry was not, in accordance with this idea. They knew that they need to protect their perimeter in order to avoid any different attack from whether infected or any other group. So after 10 days, both Sam and Henry had only one can left. That was when they met that old man. And their source of information is gone and there's no food left for them. So they decided to leave the place and then find people they could partner with or move. Actually, they just knew they can't do this alone, so they need to find other people. As the two were getting ready to leave, they heard some gunshots coming from outside the building. There's a small shootout between the three guys and then Joel. That was what we saw in The Last of Us episode 4, where Joel ended up killing all these guys. So Henry and Sam locate Joel and Ellie, and this was some sort of ambush towards Ellie and Joel. All Henry wanted was for them to work together. He must survive, and after seeing what Joel did, he believes this guy, he can really work with this guy. He looks fearless and seems very sure about what he's doing. It's funny how Henry was so much intimidated by the looks and voice of Joel, but Ellie had to reassure Henry that he is a calm person and he's safe with them. So Sam and Ellie became friends as the four of them tried to figure out how they can leave Killer City. Henry wants to help Joel and Ellie get out, but he knows he's going to get something out from this. So the episode moves on when Kathleen decides to run everything, including the 4 highways around the city. And we know they are not infected because 15 years ago they drove them underground, buried them. And this is the same underground that Henry and Sam even planned to sneak out, through the tunnels. The federal guy Henry was putting his faith in said that he and his other guys had cleared out the whole place 3 years ago. And he confirmed this with someone he could trust. He sketched a plan and hoped Joel falls with it so that they can quickly leave because there is no time left for them. So the episode goes on where the 4 of them get down to the maintenance tunnels where we saw in the scenes, which has some great references to the game. And group of people who used to live in the area seem to have moved the underground after the outbreak. Joel and Ellie found some old comic books which led them to talking and making fun and jokes here and there. This part of the scene was much similar to that of the game. It's just that different perspective, different dimension, and some of the words that they used were not similar. So while Henry and Joel shares a moment, Henry goes clean as to why he's been searched for and about. he not killing anyone. He had to take down Kathleen's brother in search for medicine for his little brother because Sam had leukemia. So we see some little moment between Kathleen and Perry, while he was trying to find a strategy to locate Henry. She shares some moments reminiscing about his brother and one old room they used to stay. And although his brother told Kathleen not to look for justice or not to, revenge or avenge his death, Kathleen was still looking to get justice for his brother. So finally, the 4 group people make it out of the tunnel, and they get to that proposed other side that they had already sketched. But something strange happened. There was this sniper on the last floor, and this is exactly what we saw in the game adaptation. It's just that the way they moved to the place and how they got there, and the men that had grouped in the game was very different from the TV show. But anyways, I'll explain at the end of this video some of the changes that really happened. It is known that this old man at the very top of the building was working for Kathleen. When Joel notices, she realized that this sniper had no aim. He goes around the back and gets inside the house. I mean, do we call him a sniper when he had a poor aim, or should we say he was just a bad sniper? But in the game, I think he was a very good sniper. Well, it's a game, so what happens? But in the TV show, his aim was very poor. So while Kathleen's group stands outside the house, Joel uses the sniper to kill the truck driver, veering the truck into one of the buildings, and just within moments the ground collapses. And with this guttural snarls, hordes of the infected, they all come out and charge at Kathleen's group. So for the very first time, we see a bloater. It quickly crashes Kathleen's men into small chops. Knowing Perry, he wanted to buy the group some time, but his face got ripped up. You know how they open your mouth out wide and then tear your face apart. It was just like this in the video. It was just like this in the TV show, as when you compare it to the video game. I mean, I just wonder why he did not even fall back. I don't know why Perry was just standing there. You cannot face a clicker, how much more a bloater. So within that shortest time, when Kathleen had wanted to take Henry down, a clicker jumps on her, smashing her head left and right. You see, those punches and aggressiveness is always gruesome. In the video game, there's this up close for you to see how the punches move, and the immediate change that comes in the victim's face, like a smashed tomato fruit. So after the whole fighting was over, the 4 find a safe place to stay away from the chaos. And Joel tries to explain to Sam and Henry that they were heading to Wyoming. I mean, the problem is that Sam has a virus. He was bitten when that chaos happened, where Joel was trying to protect his 3 people. But when Sam and Henry got under the car, one of the clickers or the infected tried grabbing his hand, and I'm sure at that point, that was when Sam had that bite on his leg. It was a bit emotional moment for me, and I wasn't expecting to see that, but it happens in any ways. We all saw that something like this was going to happen. In the video game, there are some differences which we'll be mentioning so far. So Ellie agrees to stay up with Sam when he realized that Sam had been bitten. But in the middle of the night, she goes to bed. Sam, who is now infected, jumps on Ellie and throws her to the ground. Henry just had to shoot Sam. That was a shock. He was in shock himself and can't deal with that grief. So Henry points the gun at himself and pulls that trigger. It was, imagine you killing your own brother. He's infected. What do? You have to kill him. So the small changes in the Kathleen group, on the other hand, might be the worst part, since we know from that survivor situation in the military that a weak leader can doom the entire group and lead to mutiny. You see, because of one person, she led the group into danger, and that was the end of it. I don't know why Perry, who looks so much scary, I didn't make it right for the group, and even make had to even be the right hand for Kathleen. It wasn't right in any way. I'm not trying to be biased or say that women cannot lead, but Kathleen's actions were just all over the place. It was just crazy, and things started disappearing. That wasn't how we're assuming a leader could take it up from there. And on the other side of Ellie rubbing her blood on some infected wound, the point was for us to get that, okay, the future is going to be more interesting. and she writes on that doodle pad that my blood is medicine. We know that Ellie is immune, and as to why exactly she's immune, scientifically it hasn't been proven. Just that we know that she's been bitten, but she's not turning. That is one thing that we know so far. So she then tells him she will stay up that morning, and I think Ellie knew that nothing was going to happen. She was just trying to be very optimistic, but unfortunately it didn't end up that way. But however, Sam would still be dead if Ellie hadn't given into her fear and did what she wanted to do last night. And we believe Henry could have lived, or in any way, and that would have relied upon, Sam could have lived in any way if Henry did talk to Sam about what was really happening, before the boy turned. And I think Joel himself could have killed that child instead of Henry, because if somebody is doing it, it's different from you doing it. And he was just traumatized because of what he did. Obviously, a 14-year-old girl can't be expected to act calmly and logically in such a dangerous situation. Even so, Ellie knew she was going to make things worse, and that was the moment she had to say sorry by writing on that doodle pad of Sam. She feels terrible. I mean, I would feel terrible too, as she couldn't help a new friend. So she walks and she asks for where the west direction is and starts walking, and quickly tells Joel, let's go. I mean, their relationship changes in a very big way, and it's clear that she's now very, very serious about her mission to help the other people get immune. It's also clear that Joel cares about Ellie than the mission right now, but they just didn't know how her immunity was going to save the world. All they knew was Ellie's immune, she needs to be taken to the Fireflies, and Joel must do that. Joel even himself didn't know what was going to happen to Ellie in any way. But that's what is going to make the Last of Us TV show very interesting. Is the world going to get better? Are they going to find a cure to this serious infection? And we noticed some few changes in the game as compared to the TV show, especially when Henry saw Sam change without any warning. He was so shocked that he just had to shoot at his own brother. That shock in his face could tell you that no, this is not really happening. But I think the fear had always gripped Henry, and that was what Sam was always seeing. So it follows the story of the original game, but there are some big changes. And in the game, The Last of Us, Sam gets bit in a similar way right after Joel kills that sniper. But in episode 5 of The Last of Us HBO, Kathleen, the leader of the hunters in the game, the hunter catches up with their prey, drawing attention of the group of the infected, which bites Sam. So you see that those changes. And in the Last of Us scene, in the last scene of The Last of Us episode 5, that big explosion had a big effect on the show overall, on Pedro, Pascal, and Bella Ramsey, both Joel and Ellie. In The Last of Us episode 5, the conflict between the hunters and Henry, Sam, Joel, and Ellie came to a head. This was the end of the story that had begun in episode 4 after the cliffhanger at the end of episode 4. And we saw how Henry and Sam worked together, but in the original game, it wasn't so. Ellie doesn't even find about Sam's bite until he had 10. So she doesn't even try to heal him in the first place. So some of the changes came, and it makes things a bit negative in the life of Sam. I mean, after this happened, the game makes Sam seem much more negative about life than he was, which makes Ellie leave him alone for the night. And I just don't know why there is less challenge in the TV show, but so much challenge in the game. Well, we are just yet to see more of it. So one of the most exciting parts of The Last of Us is when Sam is first bitten. This mostly because a new type of scary infected called the Bloater is introduced at this point. Bloaters are uncommon. They are infected which have the cordyceps fungus for like 10-20 years, and both in the show and in the game as well. And it's the fourth stage of the infection, coming after runners, stalkers, and clickers. So you see, we have the runners, the stalkers, and the clickers, and the bloaters is the fourth stage. Episode 5 of The Last of Us wrapped us another part of the story when Kathleen found Henry. After that, Kathleen says that she knows why Henry turned her brother into Fedra. So we see all these differences in the game and in the TV show. But in the Last of Us game, we enjoyed so much challenge, we enjoyed so much action. But in the show, the emotional aspects really grew up. But I think so far it's been best, so far it's been good. And at the end, we get this poetic justice where, you know, when Kathleen mentioned that children must die, children will die, and they often die. And that was where an infected child jumped onto Kathleen and, you know, completely killed her. So far, we've seen Ellie do her best to make Joel's life a little bit different and more fun. But Harry and Sam then might change the girl's perception, you know, forever. And there's this grim reminder that that hope could be dangerous and the world is already falling apart. I would give this one 9.5 out of 10, although there was so much changes in the video game as compared to the TV show, but the expectation was actually met. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share our video. We'll see you next in our next upload.